It's the morning star drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the MSD on 117.8. It's Tuesday, July 16th, and so happy for you joining us, and we are ready to start another week and day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. Today we have an exciting podcast for you today. We have both Bible Today and 2G Talks, and we have a new poll. And I'm glad that Pastor Sky has given me the opportunity to ask some poll questions over the last few months. And I think some of my poll questions might be more obscure than like the ones that you can answer without context that P Sky has given before. So today I'm going to provide some context for it because I'm really curious to know what your guys' opinion is. And so far with P Sky, I've had a couple of good discussions with this poll question, and I think it is important to think about. It may not be immediate, it may not even be anytime soon, and right, it may not even be within the realm of like the scope of whatever your church is into, but I do think it is an important discussion to have to prepare ourselves for the future. And I know that when the time comes, that something will probably give direction. Maybe he already has to the particular churches where this may even already be a phenomenon. And I'm sure that the Trinity will lead at each time. But I think it's an interesting thing to think about. And so I hope that you guys will engage with it and think about it now. And also help provide perspective for me too, and for P Sky, and for all of us, and for any churches that have gone through this, that are going through this, or where this is a very legitimate I don't want to say concern, but a legitimate reality, right? So we have a poll for you guys today. All right, so all right, how's everyone doing? I hope that you guys had a great weekend and that you really enjoyed this message, right? According to the Lord God's will. Like, I really like this message and I love this service. I mean, it's really short. I know last week we described the message being very hungry. Maybe this is the opposite of that. It's a very saying it's a full message, that doesn't sound right either, because that would imply that it's kind of long, right? But maybe it's a satisfied message. Maybe it's satisfied, so it's shorter. I don't know, but it was a great message nonetheless, and so I really hope that you guys enjoyed it, because I did. And I think it really builds on the message of last week, and I mean, of course, it always does, right? But I really felt that it builds on this on the message of last week, and I'm really excited to hear what your guys' takeaways were. And like right before recording this, I listened to both P Sky's Monday segment, together with you guys, and I also listened to Chelsea and Aaron's, Love and Life segment, and I received so much grace and inspiration from that too. And so, one thing that Chelsea and Aaron said was they wanted to incorporate the word into these conversations, right? Of course, it's great to hear testimonies and sharing things that are happening in our life, but the connection, the tie, if it always goes back to the word, I think all of us receive so much more grace. And so I'm always excited to hear members' reflections on the word and the things that happen in their life when they listen to the word, and even when they didn't listen to the word too. So I hope to do that with this segment. Of course, we talk about Bible Today. And even 2G Talks too. I think it should be centered around the word. But Peace Guy also made a joke and he said, it's getting too deep, so he wants more physical things. So, I'll try to make it entertaining and make it physical too, so that Peace Guy has a fun time listening to it. Yes, but don't forget, we have Q&A Thursday every week. So if you have questions, get them to Peace Guy. I really like something that he shared yesterday, in that, he will do his best to answer these questions. But I think the thing that we heard from the Grace and Truth lesson is that these answers aren't coming from us, and they're not supposed to come from us, right? It's supposed to come from God. And so Peace Guy doesn't just try to answer these questions just by himself. Of course, he probably tries to use his reasoning and other things to help us to understand, but he said he will also check with other pastors who may be able to answer questions that he doesn't know, that he trusts, that whose expertise in this kind of stuff that he trusts. And I think that's so great that we can connect to people with expertise in different things, with experiences in different things, with knowledge in different things, and talents in different things, and to be able to get these answers. So I really do believe that we should all ask questions so that we can improve our understanding of the Trinity and of what the message is, something he was given, and of what the Lord Jesus Christ is doing in our lives each and every single day. Yes, and so as you all know, the Rebel Pastor live streams are continuing to going strong. So connect your family members and connect to each other. And I really hope that many of us can support Pastor Sky's live streams as well. So thank you guys. So once again, how's everyone doing? How's the weekend? And so with this, we'll go right into the poll because this connects to my weekend. And this connects to something that happened in San Francisco. And I know we have some listeners from San Francisco too. So I'm also curious about your opinions. We kind of talked about it, but I never want the discussion to be one where someone feels like that they can't chime in, right? That it feels like a one-sided conversation. And sometimes that tends to happen, right? When one person shares their opinion, naturally, like it affects your opinion too, right? So I kind of want to know people's unadulterated opinion, but also like having a discourse, having a conversation that builds on each other's opinions is great too, right? So all of those things are great. So I just want engagement nonetheless. So the poll question for this week is, how open do you think Providence should be? And maybe Pastor Sky didn't end up using this question, or maybe he formulated it differently. But nonetheless, this is what Pastor Sky and I were talking about before. If it changed, that's all good, and I'm sure he came up with a different question. But yeah, I'm curious, right? So the context for this is I think I shared this, and I was actually re-listening to my Tuesday segment, and then I realized that I didn't really explain this part clearly. So right now, currently in San Francisco, we are renting a new office building for our services for the month of July. We were using a different, smaller place because we had two separate locations every week so far for like the last 2 years. But this month, we have some travelers and such. So we were like, okay, we have like a decent amount of members. And it would be kind of a waste to have two separate locations when so many of our members are away, right? When we can combine into one place and have a unified service and it'd be all great. So we've been doing that for this month. So we got a new place. And I think I didn't really explain that clearly in last week's episode. But so something interesting happened. I think our space is really nice, and I for one really like it. I don't know how our members feel, but I really like the space that we have so far. But the interesting thing is this space that we have is a lot more open, like to the public, like than our previous location. Like we said, it's a team space office building, and so people can rent it for like a couple hours for like their company. Like let's say if a lot of companies nowadays are like working remotely, right? So not everyone comes into work, but sometimes maybe if you want a meeting place, like because you need like to meet in person, have presentations, or work on something collaborative, you can rent an office space for on an hourly basis. So that's what we've been using for our Sunday services. So the new one that we're using is right off the street, and it has these big panel windows as like the external facing wall. So there's a big window, and of course we have blinds and stuff too, but people can easily peer inside when the blinds are up. And also, the landlord, she's very sweet, but the landlord printed our name. So it says like The Rock Church. And that's not even our name anymore, but that's our original name before something changed it. So it has like San Francisco Rock Church, like right on the outside, and the windows are see-through. So I've noticed that, in this week and last week, that people walk by and they're kind of curious. So they like peer inside, they kind of, look at the sign and stuff like that. So it's a lot more open, at least compared to the past. And so this week it was so interesting. While we were having service, this week was the first week that we did live praise. And it wasn't live praise, like we weren't praise leading and we didn't come up with the songs, but we've been joining with LA services, right? And so if there's anyone from LA listening to this, shout out to you guys. I'm really thankful for LA with all that they do for services, especially with praise too. because I really like the song choices that the praise leaders in LA have been making. I really think that it's on theme and on point to the message. And so I always feel the sense of connection between the song and the message. So I love that. So if there's anyone listening to LA, I don't know if the praise leaders from LA are listening, but please give kudos to your praise team and to your praise leader because I think that's so amazing. So anyways, like, okay, so this week, we're in one unified place. So we're like, hey, what if we have like a praise team who will at least stand next to the screen and sing along with LA, right? So this week, me and then our church rep were the two who did praise for the first time, and it was only because we did praise that I think we noticed this. But while we were singing praise, there was someone who was walking along the outside of the church of the sanctuary, and this elderly gentleman, he had a full on beard, like a full white beard. So he's quite elderly, right? Full white beard. He was wearing glasses, and he had a very round face, a Caucasian man. And he stuck his head in through the door, and he looked at what we were doing, and he smiled, and see, he seemed like a decent person, hopefully. And so like he literally just did it for a second or two, and then he went away. But I thought it was so funny. But only my church rep and I noticed because everyone else was facing the screen, right? So only she and I were facing the outside. And so that kind of is sparking this poll question, right? How open should Providence be? Because and Pastor Scott and I were having a good conversation about this, and I think I want everyone's engagement on it, right? Because there are risks and rewards to this. And down along the future, as Providence grows, especially in Western nations and these English-speaking countries, um, engagement with the public and more and more encounters with the public population will continue to grow. Right, so far, I think our natural course of how we make history is kind of clear. Generally, I mean, not everyone's story pans out like this, but typically, you are connected to the church somehow through a person, whether it's through street evangelism, through a friend or a family, and you learn and then you like come to church, right, at some point, either after you pass or when you're close to it or after you've listened to the word a few times. So that's the typical standard procedure, right? But I know there's a lot of people probably even listening here who didn't necessarily come through that exact route. And so, as we grow bigger, like the most applied path to being exposed to Providence and coming to Providence will probably be like not even the most common way. Right, so we'll have people walk into our services, right? And like Christian churches in the world, they're typically open to the public so that people can walk in. And so there's a benefit to that because we're open and we're showing that we have nothing to hide. But then we also run the risk of people coming in who aren't prepared. And, there may be a lot of unsavory characters too. Right, so we never know what kind of person we're gonna get. So of course, there's got to be some system. There's got to be something that's done, and an approach too. Not just a system of how to take care of like a particular person that comes, depending on the situation, but just in general, right? Like one of the things that we talked about in San Francisco was if it was this particular guy, I don't really know what he's like, but actually after the service was over, and some of us had gone off to lunch, apparently he came back. And he talked to one of our SS, and our SS was a little flustered. But he told the guy that, oh yeah, like the guy asked him like, oh, if we're gonna be here next week, and if so, at what time. And so I guess our SS, he's kind of flustered, so he told him just yes, without thinking about it. So yeah, we'll be here next week, or kind of early in the morning sort of thing. And so maybe there's a chance that this guy's gonna be back next week, right? So this is a very real situation that we may have to deal with, and so that's why I want to pose it as a poll question. Right now, at the moment, this is what we're planning on doing. At least that's what we talked about today. And I don't want to overstep my boundaries because I think that's literally in line with the message, right? Don't do what you're not supposed to do. Don't do what's not your mission. So I'm not going to say that I'm going to do this or that we should do this, but this was kind of the conversation we had today. We said if he comes back, we won't turn him away because while we're here, there may be more encounters like this. There are people walking on the street and looking at our sign and looking inside our building and seeing us. There were some ladies while we were practicing praise who saw us too before we pulled down the blinds. And so, yeah, he may come back. And so I said, okay, especially because he's a dude and we have no idea what kind of person he is. If I see him come in, I will go approach him first. I will welcome him in. I think I might pull him to the side and maybe take him outside first and and just introduce myself and like ask his name and then see what he's into, like why he decided to come, and say he's welcome to service. Here's someone just like the typical things, and I'll tell him that I'll sit next to him because there are definitely going to be concepts that he doesn't know, and so if he wants to ask me questions, he can ask, and if I ever feel like there's something that a brand new person won't know, maybe I'll get to explain it to him. So I think that'll be my excuse to sit next to him and have this conversation. And I'm glad that right now that God seems to have, at least for these last few weeks, put me into a place where I'm comfortable talking to strangers. So I really don't mind doing this if this comes to pass. But I think not every church is in that kind of state. And of course, I don't think God would put this situation on a church if they're not ready for it necessarily. But I think it's an interesting conversation to be had nonetheless. So yeah, please let us know what you think in the poll. I think the examples that we gave are quite extreme, like the options that we gave me, and so you may not subscribe to like a specific option, but if so, like write down in the comments too, and feel free to respond to this video. And I think Pastor Sky said he was gonna share some experiences that he's had too, right? Like in the past, like I heard like in our churches in LA, we've had some homeless people come in too, and there were like some crazy situations with that. Right, so I'm sure there'll be normal people who stumble in on Providence, and there'll also be crazy people and homeless people and people with, problems, right, and maybe some mental problems too. So there's all of these kinds of things, but this kind of will lead me into the first section of today. But before that, we're gonna get into the break. But I'll kind of tease what the first section will be about, and this is kind of shouting out to Chelsea and to Aaron, also to Pastor Sky with yesterday's segment. And it's going to be about experience, right? Having experience, gaining experience, and using experience, and how essential experience is to Providence, right? And this is going to be based on something's message, because as we said, this first segment is called Bible Today, right? So that'll be the first segment, but before that, we are going to go into the break. And the break for this week, I'm so excited about this. Right? I'm so excited about this. And the song that we're going to be listening to today is Natural Temple. And I'll be honest, this will be the MR, right? It won't have a person's voice. I hope that's the right word, right? MR, but like just the piano and the musical accompaniment. But yeah, because I heard the person who voiced over the song left. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but yeah, right now we only have the instrumental version. But I love this song nonetheless. I hope that you guys can sing this too. And this was the one of the songs we sang for praise. And sometimes, like, I'll go out and I'll even sing this song in public. Like, I'll sing not like not like on the streets or anything, but there's a lake that I go run in the mornings, and I love going there and singing this song sometimes, right? Like early in the morning. And I've also had it in mind, like in the past, like, oh, I would love to like go to like our national parks, like across the US, and sing this song and then record it and then like piece together a video and stuff like that. That's a little ambitious. I'm sure at some point we will do that, but I thought that'd be just such a cool idea. And so, maybe that gives inspiration to some. Maybe like if you're in AP or a different part, like all across the world, there are beautiful places. And I think if we could sing this song in those beautiful places and record it with a really high quality video and a high quality audio system and stuff, that would look amazing, right? So anyways, I love this song, and so even when I'm like in my car, sometimes I'll play the song on loop on Palm Plus and I'll sing it in Korean, I'll sing it in English, and I'll use the old lyrics sometimes because I didn't know the new lyrics off the top of my head. But like sometimes when I'm in the car, I'm like singing this song on the top of my lungs, and I'm like crying like as I sing it, right? I'll like pray first, and I'll sing this song, and I'll sing it with like gusto, with like every ounce and fiber of my being. And I'm so thankful, right? Because this song represents us. It represents who we're about. It represents, even related to the poll question, who we want to show to the world. It represents, all, the natural temple, right? It talks about Warmingdong. It talks about who Sansenim is. It talks about what the Trinity is doing, who we are. And I love this song. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Yes, it won't have a person's voice, but I really hope that you can sing this song too, with the old lyrics, with the new lyrics. If you know the new lyrics off the top of your head, feel free. But I really hope you guys enjoy it. And so let's get into the first break with Natural Temple. Yes, so that was Natural Temple. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it may sound a little different because there isn't a person singing it, but I hope you guys became the singers as you were singing it, right? And I think the last, like, when there was that last big update in the lyrics for this song, like, I was kind of a little not flustered because we're just so used to singing the old one, right? Because I think of Providence songs, this is probably one of the most iconic, right? So we may be used to singing the older version of the songs, but this weekend when we were singing it, I still felt that same heart and that shimjung and that depth. So I hope that you guys have fun, singing with the new updated English lyrics, anyways, for the song. I really, really think I really love the song. And so let's get into Bible today, our first like main topic in our main section. And I'm really excited about this because I drew inspiration from this for this topic about what's happening in today's Bible, right? The word that something gave that is specifically for this history and how we see it playing out in our lives and in our history, right? But the specific word I want to talk about today is about experience. And so there's a couple of inspirations for this. The first being we got the chance to listen to leaders education that something gave to people in 2005, and it's a series of educations, but this one he was telling us like what it is, like the kind of conditions that leaders need to set and what kind of things that leaders need in order to be successful. So one of the things that he talked about, so many things, and they're all so practical, and I think that's also one side of something that because lately the message has been so deep and they're really about like our faith and amongst other things. There's kind of this tendency to focus on like our faith and our spiritual based aspect, but there's also times when he gives very practical messages, right? Things that you need to clearly and substantively do, right? And so one of the things in the string of messages was about experience. And so he said that leaders need to experience a lot, right? And so he explained a lot about it. But one of the things he said in particular is that if you as a leader don't have experience, then you won't know how to help people who are going through a particular problem, right? Like let's say, and I think this is really clear because if you do have this experience with something that, like, let's say a member or another person is going through, and let's say you overcame it like a year ago or 2 years ago, or you like suffered because of it, or you find the answer to it, then you know how to help that person. And so I think this lesson is very practical, and I think it just stands to reason. Like, not really a lot of explanation needs to go in it, but I thought this was so cool because I saw a lot of stuff happening about this from this past week. But I also first wanted to give a shout out to a lot of people who are engaged, both in the comment section and also in parts of the MSD. But yeah, like I said, there are various inspirations for this, and I think a couple of people I was very inspired by to talk about this were Chelsea and Aaron, who I listened to their Love and Life episode recently, and they were both sharing their experiences at their jobs. And like Aaron was talking about the process of finding work, and what that was like, and his thing with the video games and stuff. And if you haven't had a chance to listen to it, it was really great. And I think there were a lot of deep realizations. So I hope that you guys get a chance to listen. And Chelsea, right, like going back to work and like really like how that position was saved for her and stuff. And I thought that was amazing. And also some of the challenges, right, with her coworkers and stuff, and the lessons there and the implications and all of those kind of, man, it was wonderful. And with Pastor Sky too, like he was sharing like yesterday about all of these various things like having to do with experiences, and that really I think we can give this kind of perspective only because of these set experiences. And so I'm really glad also for those who engage in the comments. I really actually, I mean, I apologize because I don't want to single out any person, but I really wanted to give, a shout out to Ina too. I hope I'm saying your name correctly, Ina, because I haven't really met you in person too often. But I've seen Chris quite a few times, and I'm really thankful for all of your comments in the section below. And I know that all across Providence, both with Ina and Chris and Chelsea and Aaron and Pastor Sky, like we can have these conversations and we can nourish each other and grow each other because we have experiences that can help teach one another. And same thing with something too, because something has experienced so much. He's gone to so many different places. He's talked to so many things, and he's also suffered in many ways too. And he's grown in many ways. So because of that, he has so much that he can talk to people about. And it's also fun. I think this is the thing. I think if you do things, it's fun, right? If you go experience things, it's fun. Try something new, it's fun. And so because of that, like if you go experience things as a leader, not only do you learn, but you get to have fun, right? And make your life of faith fun and like bring fun into the lives of your members, the constituents, your church, and even to the Trinity's lives and to like the other people you have to take care of. And the thing is, you get to like talk to anyone. Like you become able, right? You have something to contribute to conversation, and that's huge because a lot of people don't have experience. And I remember what Aaron was talking about, like his experience with the presentation, right? He had to do, right? And so he's like watching everyone, and I think it's because of his experiences that he was able to have a good presentation, and also in the process of interviewing and stuff too, right? He had to write a cover letter in Japanese and English, and they were separate, right? And he was advocating for himself in both languages separately. Like how experienced and how skilled do you have to be in order to be able to do that? And so thank you, Aaron, so much for sharing with that too. And so yeah, like this last week, and so I'll tie this into something that I was really thankful for. This is kind of connecting off of last week's sharing about this section about peace soccer, right? I told you guys that I ran into like 3 different lives, right? And that I got to talk to them because I was engaging in peace soccer and like reading something's word and translating it. And so it was just like a natural plug-in to talk to people because I was doing something. I had experience, I had knowledge, right? Chelsea, one of the things that Chelsea talked about was how, Chelsea, I'm gonna butcher this, but something like the idle mind kills a spirit, like leads to death of spirit, or something like that, right? It's like it dulls the spirit, like something like that, right? So if you're not doing anything, you don't have anything to talk about, and like honestly, you grow kind of dimmer and duller too, right? So go do stuff, right? Because so like whether it's reading like something's word and peace soccer and going out or playing soccer, even running, exercising, all of those things. So I was able to talk to a couple people, and because I was running, I was able to talk to people too. So this is so interesting. This is so funny. And I know Peace Guy has similar experiences like this too. So like I've been running a lot more in this past week and a half, and I enjoy it now. I think I'm finally over. Knock on wood. I'm finally over like the hump. I want to say the hump because I don't want it to be a hump, and say that there's more humps in the future. But I'm over the hump of like not enjoying running. So I enjoy running right now, right? Because I've developed the consistency. And so when I go run, I'm running at early in the morning, like after pre-dawn. So I go run by the lake next to my house. And I go with my mom, and my mom walks around the lake while I go run on the other side of the lake. And typically at that time when you go, there's a familiar crowd that you start to see. I think like especially if you do things early in the morning when there's less people, it's the same people who have the consistency to do things early in the morning, right? So you start to see the same group of people running every morning, walking every morning, and so one of these, I think it was Friday maybe. Like after I finished running, this was like the first week that I ran quite a lot. Like I think the first few days I was like running and then kind of taking a break and walking and then running again. But this time I was like trying my best to run, especially some of the challenging parts of the trail and like try to keep going. And so I finished a bit earlier than I usually do. And so I went back to the car and I was waiting for my mom to finish. And then there's kind of like this more older gentleman who like kind of walks around that same time in the morning. And so because I had seen him around often and I had to wait anyway, so I was like kind of stretching and he was stretching and he looked like he was about to leave. So I just like, struck up a conversation with him. And I said, hey man, like, I mean, I don't think I said, hey man, because he was cut. Well, I was like, hey, like I've seen you, here like almost every day. Like, you come here like and, come here often. And he was like, "Oh yeah, actually, I live out in Thailand, but I come here to see my kids and like check out my house and stuff." And so I had a conversation with him. We talked about a lot of things. He said he's 67, and so I naturally talked about something him, who's in his 70s, because he said he can't run anymore because he's 67. And I said, oh, actually, so I talked about something to him. He's 70 something, and he plays soccer still in his age. And he was like, the guy was like, wow, like really? Like in his 70s? Yeah. And I was like, yeah. And like, recently I've been translating his book on soccer because he said that God taught him like about life and about faith, like about all of these things, about how to live life properly through soccer. And he's like, through soccer? Right. So yeah, we had a good conversation. And then, I told him like quite a few other things. That's something we shared. And then what I did in this past like year. Like I told him I was in Hawaii last year. And I was there for about 7 months, and it was a good time. But I also gained a bit of weight while I was in Hawaii. Right, the food is good, it's so warm, it's comfortable, and so I did exercise a little bit. But I also kind of like gained a lot of weight. So now that I'm back, I'm like trying to kind of be healthy again and exercise and do stuff like that. And so, I told him those things, and this part is so funny. So this is part of that experience. Like you can't come up with this. You have to go out there and have these kind of experiences and conversations and run-ins with people too, right? So, like when I was talking to him, I think like in the world, especially maybe in like the Western context, maybe like when you have a good conversation with someone who's religious, especially someone who like is of the cloth, right, or a pastor or something like that, maybe people feel like guilty, right? Or they feel compelled to say that they're a good person, right? They feel compelled to say that, oh, like it's kind of like going up to like a priest or something, like say, oh Father, like I'm not a bad person, or like like it's like almost a confession or something like that. So it is like unprompted. We're just having a good conversation. He just turned to me and he said, I've been sober for 33 years now, right? Like I've been in AA, like Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've been, smoke free and alcohol free for 33 years. And then I remember thinking to myself, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's great. Like, and no, it really is great, right? Because I know that is a huge thing. And, drinking is so bad for you. And so also like if it's a problem for someone, right, if they're an alcoholic, the fact that they can be alcohol free, for that long of a period, that is actually a huge thing. But I just thought it was so funny that he just felt like he wanted to tell me that, right? Like it wasn't really connected to the conversation that we were having. And so it was very natural. We had a good time. I'm not going to evangelize this person. Maybe I would, but actually he told me a lot of things that I was like, oh, maybe this is a little late for this guy. But we had a good conversation, and we said we'll see you around, and then and he had to leave, so he did. Um, but all of this happened, me being able to talk to this guy. It would not have happened if I hadn't been running, if I hadn't developed this consistency, and even the subject matter of our conversations would not have come up if I hadn't been working on peace soccer, if I didn't make that connection with him, if I didn't go to Hawaii and even have something to say, even about my own weight and stuff like that. And all of this conversation was easy. And even related to the poll question and with the guy that came in, right now at least, I'm totally comfortable talking to that dude if he were to come back because I've been going out and doing more things. And so I have reasonably more things to talk about right now. So I feel like there's like a sense of confidence that comes, right, from having done stuff, right? And like uh I heard this from a doctor within Providence recently actually, and I think this is really good. But the doctor was saying how that for those of you who don't have confidence, one of the things that you can go do first is exercise. Because actually, when you consistently exercise, most people develop at least a bit more confidence. And so I can see what he's saying, and actually in running and in doing these things, I have built a little bit more confidence in the last like a couple weeks. And of course, it's not to say that oh, you've been running for 2 weeks, right? Like, oh, big whoop, right? So yeah, like I know that it's not that long of a time, and I think that maybe that actually speaks with more volume, right? Because it's only been a short time, but experience made a change, and I can see it. And so I'll give a couple more examples too. Two more fun stories, right? Oh wow, this one was so deep too, right? So I've been talking to more of my cousins, right, from Korea, right, who are in Providence, and so we were like talking about various different topics. And it was so good, right, to have family that you could talk to. And I posted this on my Instagram, but I hope that man, um wish for this for everyone and for the future Providence, right? That we can have more and more of our loved ones and families be part of Providence, and so that we can have these great conversations together. Because my cousins and I have been talking like this for the first time in like 20 years. Like we've seen each other a couple times over the years, but now after these 3 months that I spent in Korea, we have so much to talk about, and we really see how God worked both in the 20 years where we were apart and even now 20 years after, like after he raised each of us at least to this degree. And so one of the things that my cousin sent me, and if anyone you guys want this, I'll send it to you because this is incredible. Because I'm not an artsy guy, but this had to do with Michelangelo's painting where God and Adam are looking at each other, right? And God is like reaching out his hand and stuff like that. It's that super famous artwork. And I think everyone knows this artwork, but for me, I'm not a huge artsy guy. But now that I'm entering like my mid 20s, I'm starting to care a little bit more about art because I see that like, and something you mentioned this in the Grace and Truth message, right? Like the expert artist, they're able to see the forms and the shapes really well, right? So I kind of connected this to the Michelangelo thing. But one of the things that my cousin shared, it was from a tweet, right? And in the tweet it says that when you look at the hand on the artwork, you see that God's finger is stretched to the maximum. But when you look at Adam's finger, it's not stretched out. It's bent. So in order to reach God, he had to extend his finger just a little bit, but Adam did not do that. And then I was like, wow. Like when my cousin said that, I was like, wow, like that's so crazy. And like in the caption in the Twitter thing, it was saying like, yeah, like in this way, God is always ready to give us help. And he's always ready to connect with us. And all it takes is for man to, extend his finger and to connect. And so this too was experience, right? This too was an experience with art. It was an experience of conversation. It was an experience, it was a story. And I was actually able to use this to connect to newcomers. So I texted one of the guys, one of the three guys whose contact information that I got. Actually, I messaged two of them, and I sent them that photo. I was like, dude, I thought this was just so incredible, so I just wanted to send this your way. I mentioned this when I introduced myself to you, but I'm only here for a couple weeks, and so if you have time, I would love to communicate. And so I know I'm probably sure you're busy, and I'm super busy in the time that I have remaining. But if it's for God's will, I want to cherish each person that I meet. And if it's for the Holy Spirit's purpose, then who am I to deny meeting with someone? So if you ever feel inspired in the next few weeks, please connect with me, and I would love to meet up at any time and to have a conversation. And so yeah, I like texted that, right? And it was so easy, right? It wasn't burdensome for me. Like before, when like I thought about evangelism, and when I thought about like doing things, like talking to people, doing things, like trying to convince people to learn the word, it was challenging at times. And even still now, if I didn't have anything to talk about, it would be challenging still. But I was able to send these things to these people because I had stuff to talk about, just stuff. Like even Pastor Sky, one thing that I think Pastor Sky does a lot of is he goes out and he just does a lot of stuff. Like I'm sure you just hear it in his podcast, right? He has so many friends coming to visit him from Korea, from Taiwan, from all these places, from Australia. Like how do you have the time, peace guy? Like, I don't know if you're listening to this part, but how do you have the time? How do you have the resources? But all jokes aside, yeah, those experiences shape us, and it makes us actually more even intelligent too, and just able to give more to society and able to give more to God. Yeah, so that was a Michelangelo story. Yeah, if you want that photo, just message me or let me know, and I'll try to get it to you somehow because it was deep. Maybe, but honestly, you could probably even look it up because I think it's probably well out there. And the last story that I'll share with this was, yeah, this is an experience. This is dumb. I don't know if I mentioned this, but this is dumb. Do not do this at home. But this too is experience. But maybe you can receive this experience vicariously through this story, and you don't have to do this yourself, right? So, but I think I may have actually shared this, but recently, one of my friends, he started dating a girl, and I want to support him. I would rather he learn the word and come to this history and get blessed and all that. But if I want to be supportive and show that I still love him, and so I went to celebrate her birthday with him, and we were having dinner, and at the end of the night, we went to his house and we are gonna blow out a cake. and he bought a cake. And this is the weekends of Father's Day here in the US. So he bought a Father's Day cake because the bakery he went to only had Father's Day cake. So it had a baseball mound. And like, it had like turf on it, which is like matcha flavoring, and it had like a baseball bat made of chocolate and stuff. And so we are gonna light it, but he's someone who like has his own apartment, but his parents own it. So his mom comes to like clean the house sometimes. And so like when he was trying to look for a lighter to light the candles, it wasn't there. And so like we couldn't light it. So at first we were kind of disappointed. But then his girlfriend tried to convince him, be like, hey, like actually, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe you can just give this cake for your dad for Father's Day. Since Father's Day is literally the next day and you're gonna have to go see him. But I know my friend really, really well. Like, I've known this guy for like, 15 years now. So I could tell when there's something like that he doesn't like. So I could tell from his face that he was so disappointed because, he just wanted to do this, right, for his girlfriend. And so, like, I think it would have been fine if we had left then and there. And we just gone home. I'm pretty sure he would have gotten over it. And yeah, he probably would have just given the cake to his dad. But we lingered and we were there. And so I could just the disappointment was palpable, like it was in the air and I could feel it on my skin. And so I was like, all right, bro, just pull it out, we'll just find a way to light the candles, we'll figure something out. And so like we were kind of joking around at first, like how do we light these candles, right? We don't have a lighter, right? So he kept trying to look for the lighter and I was getting kind of impatient. Okay, let's try to find a way. So I was like, okay, let me try to take the candle and maybe if I put this on the stove it will light. But the problem is he has an induction stove, right? So it's not fire, it's not gas, it's an induction stove. So that didn't really work. Like as soon as I turned on the heat and got it closed, the wax started to melt before like the wick did anything. And then we were like doing dumb things, and I think because we don't want to set fire to the house or something, doing something stupid, right? So our ideas at first were kind of tame. Like we were like not 100% invested in trying to do something crazy to get this lit up. So I was like, I took a wad of tissue, like a paper towel thing, and I was like, okay, maybe I can get this to light on the induction stove. And I like, I was like kind of just holding it on the induction stove with the thing on high, and it didn't really work. It was kind of like burning, not burning, it was kind of like frying, and it didn't really work. And so I was just kind of doing it just to do it. Like I was like, okay, if I really want this to light, I think more extreme action needs to be taken, but I don't know how serious we are. Like, I don't know if we're just doing this right now just to do it and just to be stupid and just to have fun, or I don't know if we're trying to actually light it. So I was just kind of doing it just cuz. And then my friend, like, he brought over like a portable heater. He's like, maybe we could put this through the grill of the heater and maybe it'll light up. And I thought that idea was even stupider, and I thought even that was even more dangerous. And so, but just to appease him, I like try to do that. But the railing on the heater, it was too tight, and so the thing wouldn't go through. And so if this were a joke, that probably would have been the last thing that we tried, right? If we were just doing this just for the sake of doing it, right? Just to like, try to like make the night fun, right? And just try to like go on our way. But I was like, wait, I did not come this far. I did not put it in this much intention to quit here. But I could tell the rest of my friends they were satisfied, they were kind of done. So I was like, dude, I'm not stopping. And so I put like oil, like olive oil, on the paper towel, and then I tried with the induction stove again because I felt that maybe it was kind of frying earlier because it was just paper, right? There's no oil, it's not gonna catch. So I put some olive oil on and I did it, and then some cinders started to form, right? So it was like actually it wasn't just crisping up, it was like burning, and so it's burning, and so it started to burn, and so we're like, oh shoot, get the candles. So like one of my friends like got the candles, and like we had this like wad of a paper towel, and then like it was like smoldering and embering, and then so like one person was holding the candle like next to the paper towel, and we were blowing on it so that it would like the embers would get stronger. And so we're doing that for a couple minutes, and everyone's like waiting with like a bated breath and stuff. And then eventually like it wasn't strong enough, right? It was like one square, of paper towel, so it wasn't strong enough. And I had already felt at this point, I was like, this is not gonna be enough. But still, this is kind of like another check. This is like another level of, okay, are we really gonna take it to the extreme, or is this where we call it? Right? In my mind, I had already gone to the extreme, but I didn't want to do anything to make my friends uncomfortable. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, would I let someone do this in my house? I was like, probably not. And you guys are probably listening to the story like you would probably never let me do this in your house. You'd probably never let a group of, like, we're not even kids anymore. We're like 27, right? You would never let a group of people this age try to do this in your house, probably. Maybe I don't, maybe you guys are more reckless than I am, but but I was like, I don't think I would let someone do this in my house. But I was like, okay, like I want him, like my friend seems so disappointed, and it's like a waste of time to sit disappointed not doing something about it. So I just grabbed a fat stack of paper towels and I just like I put a, I don't think I put oil in it. I'm not sure what I did, but I just put it directly on the stove, right, on the induction, and then just fire bursted out from the napkins. And then so like my friends, because they were kind of hesitant about this, they were so focused on the fire. And so they're like trying to put it out, and so like everyone's on standby, right? One person had like a pail of water, right? Like a pot full of water to toss on, and another person that had a lid for a pot that they could use to like get rid of the oxygen and to put it out. But I was like, as soon as I saw fire, I went to grab the candle. So I went to grab the candles, I lit them, I put them in the cake, and I didn't turn back. And then everyone else is dealing with putting out the fire, and then someone put it away. And then later, someone told me, it was like, Eddie, like when you turn around, that moment you turn around, the fire reached all the way to the ventilation hood. And then, like, luckily, someone was standing right there, and they had the lid, and they were able to put it out right away. And my other friend was on standby, with a pot full of water. But I told them, yeah, like, but they were all so shocked, of course, but they were also blown away that we did get the candles lit. They were like, dude, this is the craziest thing that we've ever seen. And some of them, like, I used to do kind of wild things in high school because I was all about, dude, like, let's just do it. Like, why are we hesitating, kind of thing. So I used to do some wild things, like nothing like this, but like similar things, like all up until high school. So the guys like that we were hanging out knew this, but like my friend's girlfriend and like my other friends' girlfriends, they never seen this before. So that thank you for taking us on a journey of what it was like, being you guys in high school sort of thing. And it was so funny. And they were like, in one way, like kind of impressed. They were like, dude, like, you set your mind to do it and you did it. And so it was a fun night. Definitely don't recommend anyone doing that at home. But that too was an experience. We did something. It could have gone horribly wrong too. But I also did trust my friends to have my back and to take care of it. And we're adults too, so I knew it wasn't gonna get that extreme. Hopefully. But anyways, all of this, yes, it was about experience. Don't do that kind of experience, but have many experiences. Go have fun too. I'm not a person who recommends traveling for the sake of traveling, just because I think after you travel a lot, it's just chasing experience after experience. But that is the difference and the caveat that is given for Providence people, right? We're not just traveling for the sake of traveling. I'm not recommending having experiences just for the sake of enjoyment and of having experiences. I'm recommending experience to learn so that you can use said experience both in your life and in helping other people. And so I really like this message that Sunseem gave, and I believe that all of the things that Pastor Sky, that Chelsea and Aaron shared, that all of that is the embodiment of experience coming in handy, and of experience coming in a way that actually helps all of us learn when we learn each other's experience, and that is practical and useful in Providence, and will help us to actually both impress people, help people, resolve people's questions and problems. And so go out and experience something, whatever it is. It can be everything, anything, right? It can even be reading books and stuff like that too. And so there's a lot of experiences to be gained. And so that ends today's main segment. So 2G Talks will be kind of short, but before that, let's go into our second break for today. And this too was a song that we sang today, and I thought this was really great. This is one of Sunseem's songs, and I think with Sunseem's songs, the more proficient you are at singing it, the deeper and actually the better that you realize that it is. So the second song that we sang for praise together with the LA church this time was "My Heart Does Not Change," and so my church rep and I, we were trying to sing this to prepare, and she was kind of nervous at first because she's, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can sing this song well. And I totally understand. I felt that way too. But I remember my experience in Korea, going to churches like the Busan church, where they really make a huge effort to sing 선생님's new songs proficiently, like good, like no stammering, no being lost in the melody because something doesn't make sense. But they really work hard to do it until they get it. And I saw a huge difference in how the song sounded. So this song is My Heart Does Not Change. And one of the things that I really like about it is the lyrics, where it talks about like crossing over rivers, over the mountain pass, and it talks about all of like the deserts and these kind of like different geographical things that we walk over, and it's like, denoting and talking about the challenges of life, right? But that through all of that we will be never changing. And I believe that being here in 2024, and I believe Pastor Sky was kind of talking about this yesterday too, that really that we are people who at least until now, and at least in this sense, did not change. Even though we did traverse over mountains, over deserts, and through rivers, and we saw the value of someone whose heart does not change. So I do think that people should be proud of themselves, and even if you're not proud of yourself, at least be proud of your brothers and sisters who made it to this point. And so, with this, we'll go into the song "My Heart Does Not Change." Yes, so that was My Heart Does Not Change. And I think this song, I don't know about for you, but for me, this might be a little harder to get into just listening to the melody. So I think it is something that you should sing. And I think you should sing and do these things too. And so this is quite interesting, but part of the lesson that of the education that something was giving to leaders back in 2005 was he was giving them a list of stuff to do, and on the list, like he was saying, like one of the things, one of the, and this sounds so basic, but one of the things was, singing 3 songs a day, right? He said, make sure to do that. And actually, like I was looking at the list, and I'm not saying evangelism is easy, like now, like just because I spent a week talking to people, but it seems easier at the moment at least. And so it was funny because actually the thing on the list that I have been doing the least stuff, that so because of that it was kind of challenging for me, was singing, right? Because praying I've been doing more, because I think, when you're trying to evangelize lives, it's just so hard not to pray because you're like so desperate, right? Like you're like, you know that it won't work out if you don't pray. So you're just so desperate and you pray, right? And then it's not to say I'm like praying like hours and I'm praying like all the time, but like prayer has been a little bit more of something that I've been doing, and evangelism and trying to talk to people has been more of what I'm doing. But praise, I was like, okay, I've been lacking in praise. I haven't been doing my best in praise. But yeah, so I think if you sing these songs, you will enjoy it more, you will gain more, and so I hope that you guys can do that, and that we can elevate our appreciation and our engagement with different songs of this history too. And so with this, we'll enter into the final segment for today. As always, we have 2G Talks, and I'm so excited. There's like a mountain of things that we could talk about with second generation, and I have kind of like a lot of exciting things I think related to second gen and SS and Milky Way for the future. But there was something that kind of came up, and I want to be as direct as possible, so there's no beating around the bush about this. And this has to do with patience. And I think this isn't just for parents or for people dealing with second generation, but it's also, to do with a of like, managers and lecturers and evangelists, to do with newcomers. But I think it's even more important when it comes to members and with people that you love. Like being patient with them and showing patience. And this is one of the other things that actually something talked about in the lecture to leaders. He said, practice patience every day and count the number of times that you were patient with someone instead of losing your cool and losing your temper. And he said, when you know that you've actually done a good job of being patient, he said, when you no longer have to count, right? When it's become second nature for you to be patient with people, because leaders must be patient with people. And I think this is something that I really learned. And I think the applicability of this goes far and wide over a lot of things. And I really hope that the person who has to hear this is listening to this. And maybe that person is me. So maybe I'm speaking to myself, in which case I'll speak more clearly. But patient is really important. Tying this to the previous section about experience, not everyone has the same level of experience as you or me in that particular field, and especially in, let's say, our area of specialty, right? When we're dealing with newcomers, with second gen, with the youth, or even with just with other members who are not experienced in the area that you maybe, that one person maybe, um, they won't know, right? They won't know, right? So I think in Providence, like one of the places where this is applicable is like we talk about standards a lot. And standards make total sense, right? Having standards, and we want to be perfect. And this even goes to that first poll question, which I just saw from Pastor Sky, that he changed the wording of this, right? And he changed it to, when should we invite people to church? And some of the options on that is, right away, we should have open door policy. Everyone should be able to walk in and walk out, right? And then, to the most extreme answer of they should learn everything first before they come to church, right? So like, and then there's all the answers in between, right? And so we have standards, and standards make sense. This is the perfect level history of the complete testament new time period. This is the history of brides. This is where Jesus has come back in spirit and is with us, and we are reaching the rapture, right? And we're going to this level. So it makes perfect sense to have standards. But then I was thinking about this morning, going to church and seeing the fact that we're singing praise. And I think praise is something that's obviously where we're like, oh, like it's one of the missions on front of the stage. And so in the past, and I don't know for our newer members if you're aware of this or if this is applicable in the church that you are, but they're typically standards for praise, right? Like people with missions such as praise, they're supposed to set like a certain amount of days for prayer and stuff like that. And actually, for me, because I started doing praise when I was in middle school and then high school, they weren't so strict on uh the conditions setting. And of course, it's not that someone's imposing conditions on you, so you're supposed to keep it for yourself. So I think that's also why they weren't so strict with it. But they also recognize that as a middle school kid and a high school kid, that I probably wasn't really setting the pre-dawn condition. Not to say that that's an ideal thing, but a couple things made me think about this, and with this, we'll wrap up for today's with this part about patience and experience. We should not lower the standard. The standard should be kept, and the standard should be the bar that we set for these things. But instead of setting a standard that people can't keep, what we should be doing is, yes, this is a standard. This is what we want in Providence. This is what we want in a church. This is what we want in our praise team. But we should elevate people to be able to meet that standard. Instead of pushing down, instead of setting something that they can't keep, instead of trying to make people who are not able to do that right away, force them from day one to do it, maybe some people will be able to meet it, but the vast majority of people will not. And then what happens typically when you push down too hard on people who are not strong enough is most of the time they die. And I haven't seen too many people who like are born out of adversity and become really successful. Very few do. And if you want Providence to be a place of the very few, sure, we can set that as a standard. But if you want Providence to become a shining world of heaven where many people come but do reach that standard, you do have to raise people to reach that level. And for that, patience is absolutely necessary. Right? As it says in the New Testament, right? Love builds up. Right? Love builds people up. So love has to be the priority. Patience has to be the priority. And I think, of course, this isn't like the ultimate rule. I mean, maybe it is, but this isn't like applicable in everything. Like you do have to have standards and judge things correctly too. And sometimes you do have to, give tough love and stuff like that as well. But in general, this love is absolute. Like we need to have it. And I think specifically I want to say today for anyone who may have gone through a period where like, oh my gosh, how come this person can't do this? How come this person still to this day causes, either me grief or like the department grief or the team grief or the church grief or something even grief, and how come they're so slow to change and stuff like that. And I think I can pinpoint that and say that because I feel like probably everyone has experienced that, right? If you have run in any kind of leadership capacity or any capacity, right, where you're managing someone, and this may even go for a married couples too, with how they feel about each other, or with parents and their kids, or with friends in church, or with members of the same department who are trying to take care of each other. And so I want to emphasize patience today so that we can once again adopt that heart that Sunsim has for us, and being patient and trying to raise us, and the Trinity trying to raise us too. I thought what Pastor Scott shared yesterday was so funny with the relationship. I forgot what it was, whether it was a sociologist or a psychologist or a relationship coach or something that was talking about how the most successful relationships are those where people have low standards for each other, right? Because when people set really high standards and they continually can't meet it, then it leads to conflict and disappointment, right? And so, of course, we do need to have high standards, but we need to raise people up to meet those standards because us too, we did not meet our standards and we did not become the people that we are just in the blink of an eye. And we're probably not all perfect now either, right? And so we still have so much to work on, and we would probably want people to be patient with us and give us a shot. And of course, sometimes God and the Holy Spirit and the Holy Son will use people to be impatient with us, to push us out of our comfort zone sometimes to make us change. And hopefully we become those people that, as Solomon said, who will heed wisdom's warning and who will, when God rebukes us, that we will know, oh, okay, so I really should change this thing. But a lot of times that's kind of hard to see right away. And even for us too, even when we know, we may be reactionary to it. And we may be like kind of like hurt by that too. And so imagine someone who doesn't know those specific scriptures, who hasn't had this kind of experience before, who doesn't know that sometimes they should snap out of being lazy or being not doing what they should do. Like those are all very real realities, right? So especially if there's someone who is not yet that experienced, who is new, or who is going through a tough time, or who doesn't understand, or who hasn't been listening to the word, and something like that, or just doesn't understand your shimjung and your heart and what your context and what you're going through, then we need patience. And we need to pray for them too. And we need to take care of them too. And we need to teach them too. Right? But first, you open up their hearts, have a good conversation with them. And I've seen the fruits of this effort actually this past week when I was taking care of one of the SS. I think I'm not going to say that he's changed like entirely for the better and everything is perfect and everything is better now. But I've had years of being patient with this one SS, and there were so many times where I wanted to lose my cool and I wanted to explode and like blow up and just tell him like he needs to fix these things. But this week I didn't do that, and it's been years of taking care of this kid, and man, he has transformed. At least in the years that I've seen him, he is transformed. And I'm so like all of the suffering, all of the pain, it went away. Like just from seeing how he was this week. Of course, he may disappoint me again. I'm not. I mean, of course, I'm not saying that that I'm someone who has this role over him to feel disappointed or proud, and that's my main role. But something may happen again, and he might collapse again, and some bad thing may happen. But at least for now, I've seen like maybe he reached a new level, and that level was just so rewarding to see. Like not for me, like it's no skin off my back whether or not he does well. But the fact that he changed for himself, at least to this degree, and the fact that he grew to this degree means he's that much closer to living a life of providence and living a life that would make God happy. Right? To watch a kid come out of suffering because he's trying, right? How happy must God feel seeing that? And how happy must God feel looking at each of us when we do that too? So yes, we have to improve. Each of us have to improve too, but let's be patient with each other and let's actually give each other even more love. But let's also be wise too. And that might be tricky too, but that will also require experience, and experience like dealing with disappointment many times, experience learning what does and what doesn't work. Pastor Sky has been talking about that a lot too, like experiencing things that don't work, and maybe something that didn't work, it will work this time because something changed, like some small thing, right? It's not that like that in the times that we previously tried something and that watch it failed, it's not that everything went wrong, but if you split it down to the components, there's probably some things that worked and some things that didn't. And so even if the design seems the same way, right, Pastor Sky was talking about this yesterday, sometimes you can feel so averse to doing something just because you've watched it not pan out well. And I totally get what he's talking about. And I think everyone does, right? I've seen so many people, so many churches in Providence like fight and argue and like people going against each other, and I know how terrible and where that ends up, and people keep making that same mistake still, and I hate watching that happen. But I also know there's some unique things in each situation, things that can be tweaked and changed and that can prevent major calamity from happening too. So let's continue to be hopeful. Let's continue to bear fruits of love, bear the produce of what was it? It was it produce of love? Oh man, it's so late right now. I'm so tired. I don't. Oh, what was it from last week's message? Produce of grace? Was it produce? Yeah. Oh wait, produce of grace. Let's bear the produce of grace. I thought that was such a powerful parable and a powerful way to describe that. Let's bear the fruit of grace. Let's sow it. Let's farm it. Let's grow it. And so I hope that you guys had a great Tuesday and that you guys are starting this day together with the Lord. And I'll catch you guys on another week's episode of the MSD 117.8 on this Tuesday episode with Bible Today and 2G Talks.
Let's realign, just listen and feel your they cannot stop me when I'm